Some of the world's best-loved musicians have fallen victim to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, with a few sadly faring far worse than others. From soul legends to opera singers and everyone in between, here's a look at all the most popular musicians known to have contracted the coronavirus. There are only a handful of American singer-songwriters so original, influential, and idiosyncratic that they rank with the great poets of the English language. One of them is John Prine. Straddling country, folk, bluegrass, and other traditional rootsy styles on the dozen-plus albums he's recorded since the early 1970s, Prine crafted a number of highly regarded off-covered songs like Illegal Smile, You Never Even Called Me By My Name, and Grandpa Was a Carpenter. He was also an innovator on the production side of music, breaking away from the industry establishment in 1981 to form his own label, Oh Boy Records. In 2019, Bryan was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and in January 2020, he received a sterling tribute from his peers and successors in the form of a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. However, having beaten cancer, Bryan was hospitalized on March 26, 2020 for symptoms of COVID-19. Soon thereafter, he was intubated, and his wife and manager Fiona Prine revealed that the situation was critical. Although he entered a stable condition a few days later, his condition sadly regressed, and Bryan passed away on April 7th. He was 73 years old.
When I get to heaven, I'm going to shake God's hand. I'm going to thank him for more blessings than one man can stand.
Aside from disco, the other major form of popular music most associated with the 1970s was the California sound, that smooth, mellow mixture of country, pop, and rock that had first cropped up a decade earlier. The biggest acts of this subgenre included the Beach Boys, the Eagles, and, of course, singer-songwriter Jackson Browne. An inaugural act on the adult rock-friendly label Asylum Records, Browne's honeyed, gentle, soulful voice and guitar strumming made him one of the most popular solo acts of the 70s and early 80s, with hit character studies like Running on Empty, Doctor My Eyes, and Somebody's Baby. After spending the last couple of decades throwing himself into various causes, charities, and political protests, Browne was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2004. But in 2020, he became one of the most notable famous people to be temporarily sidelined by the coronavirus. He told Rolling Stone, "As soon as I had a small cough and a temperature, I tested. My symptoms are really pretty mild, so I don't require any kind of medication and certainly not hospitalization or anything like that." Duran Duran was an English new wave five-piece band that hit the charts with a number of global hits, including Girls on Film, Rio, and Hungry Like the Wolf. And while lead singer Simon Le Bon was certainly a hit with the band's ravenous fans, bassist John Taylor gave him a whole lot of competition. Taylor also pursued other projects, both during and after his time in Duran Duran, notably as a member of the supergroup The Power Station with singer Robert Palmer, with whom he had a couple of big hits. On April 5, 2020, Taylor revealed via his Instagram account that, almost 3 weeks prior, he had tested positive for the coronavirus. He wrote, "Perhaps I am a particularly robust 59-year-old, or I like to think I am, or was blessed with getting only a mild case of COVID-19. But after a week or so of what I would describe as a turbocharged flu, I came out of it feeling okay." Pink was very different from the rest of the crowd of young female pop singers that stormed onto the Billboard charts in the early 2000s. Rocking cropped and dyed hair, her songs featured rock instrumentation, and her lyrics frankly discussed personal struggles, failings, and messages of healing. Above all, though, it was her soaring and slightly raspy voice that propelled tunes like So What, Get the Party Started, and Sober to the top of the charts. On April 3, 2020, the singer announced on Instagram that she and her 3-year-old son had both tested positive for the disease 2 weeks earlier, and had since made a full recovery. She wrote, "My family was already sheltering at home, and we continued to do so for the last 2 weeks, following the instruction of our doctor. Just a few days ago, we were retested and are now thankfully negative."
I'm hoping that we're out of the woods, but this thing is a roller coaster. Like, just when you think you're better, something else happens.
The singer also pledged $1 million to fight against the disease, earmarking half for the Temple University Hospital Emergency Fund in Philadelphia, where her mother worked for nearly 2 decades. The other half will find its way to the City of Los Angeles Mayor's Emergency COVID-19 Crisis Fund. Christopher Cross was the captain of an ultra-smooth, male-dominated subgenre known as yacht rock. He hit #1 with Sailing, a sleepy, gentle song all about the greatness of boats and, well, how great it is being on them. In 1981, Cross accomplished a feat at the Grammys few others have managed. After the release of his first album, he won all 4 major awards, taking home Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Album of the Year, and Best New Artist. But because tastes changed quickly, Cross didn't score a top 40 hit after 1984, although he still toured and maintained a large fan base. In April 2020, Cross revealed to those fans that he had contracted coronavirus. In a post on Instagram, he wrote, "I'm sorry to report that I am among the growing number of Americans who tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. Although I am fortunate enough to be cared for at home, this is possibly the worst illness I have ever had." Bon Jovi might have begun life as a hair metal band, being lumped in with the likes of Poison and Whitesnake thanks to its members' giant hairdos, screeching guitar licks, and huge firework-filled arena tours. But the band weathered the death of hair metal in the early 1990s, evolving into a more straight-ahead mainstream pop rock group. And part of the credit for Bon Jovi enduring as a legacy act goes to David Bryan. While not as famous as lead singer John Bon Jovi or guitarist Richie Sambora, Bryan has added his keyboard skills to the band's extensive list of hit songs since 1983. Over the years, Bryan has experienced more than his fair share of health scares. He once accidentally sliced off part of a finger and had to endure months of painful physical rehabilitation. He also once caught a parasite during a tour of South America. And in March 2020, he contracted the coronavirus. Bryan came down with the usual symptoms, including a fever, headaches, and body aches. After it became difficult for him to move and breathe, he was prescribed a round of antibiotics to treat the condition. His wife also tested positive for the virus. Known for both his solo work and as a member of the seminal 80s and 90s group the Ghetto Boys, Scarface is an icon of the Houston rap scene and the hip-hop world in general. In a Zoom interview with fellow Ghetto Boys member Willie D, Scarface broke the news that he'd been diagnosed with the coronavirus and had fought an extremely hard battle with the disease.
Like, I've been to the point where I just felt like I was gonna die, bro.
Scarface said his symptoms started out as a throat irritation but began to worsen, leading him to eventually require hospitalization. At one point, the rapper said his kidneys failed.
It's a cold thing, big homie.
Yeah.
It's cold, man.
Virtually synonymous with the wild go-go British rock scene of the 1960s, Marianne Faithfull hit it big with As Tears Go By when she was still just a teenager. Further British invasion singles and her headline-grabbing relationship with Mick Jagger would only increase her fame. In the 70s, drug use and severe laryngitis completely changed Faithfull's sweet and clear voice into lower, raspier territory, which she unveiled in the 1979 comeback album Broken English. On April 5, 2020, Faithfull's manager, Francois Rivard, told the media that his client was under treatment in a London hospital for COVID-19. In addition to her career-altering struggles with drugs and a medically changed voice, Faithfull has also previously struggled with hepatitis C and breast cancer. Rivard said, "We all wish her well and a full and speedy recovery." Opera isn't as universally popular an art form now as it was a couple of hundred years ago, and you could probably count on one hand the number of opera singers that the average person can name. In fact, you'd probably only need 3 fingers. In the 1990s, the 3 tenors toured and recorded albums, and they were giants of their genre, titans blessed with superhuman deep voices. Jose Carreras, Luciano Pavarotti, and of course, Placido Domingo. One of the most famous opera vocalists on the planet, Domingo was already massively successful and beloved throughout the opera houses of Europe. In fact, he sang his signature role, the title character in Otello, more than 200 times. In a Facebook post on March 22, 2020, Domingo broke the news that he'd tested positive for COVID-19 and had gone into self-isolation with his family. He wrote, "Currently, we are all in good health, but I experienced fever and cough symptoms." On March 31st, the 79-year-old singer revealed on social media that he was feeling much better and was continuing to rest up. Austin band Asleep at the Wheel reinvented and expanded American music in the 1970s, combining traditional styles like Western swing and country music with rock, folk, and Americana. And leader Ray Benson led the charge. Despite a changing lineup of nearly 100 musicians over the decades, Asleep at the Wheel is essentially his band. He also brought his sound to dozens of others, producing artists such as Vince Gill, Susie Boggess, and Merle Haggard. On March 31, 2020, shortly after celebrating his 69th birthday, Benson announced that he'd tested positive for the coronavirus and had experienced minor symptoms, including feeling fatigued and dizzy. In the early 90s, country music crossed over into the pop music world in a big way, thanks to charismatic hitmakers like Joe Diffie. Diffie mixed the slickly produced pop sensibility of the era with a twang and down-home relatability that evoked classic country stars of eras long gone by, such as Hank Williams and Hank Williams Jr. Music fans flipping over to CMT wouldn't go long without seeing one of Diffie's fun videos for his huge hits, like Third Rock from the Sun or Bigger Than the Beatles. Diffie scored his last big hit in 2000, but he continued to tour and record. Sadly, he made headlines again in 2020 when he tested positive for the coronavirus. Diffie developed severe complications, and on March 29, 2020, the country crooner passed away at the age of 61. Fountains of Wayne had a string of minor hits in the early 2000s before scoring a major smash in 2003 with Stacy's Mom, a power pop ode to sexy mothers. Adam Schlesinger played bass in Fountains of Wayne while serving as its main songwriter, a role he also held in the band's Ivy and Tinted Windows. And if there was an incredibly catchy or wry song in a movie or TV show in the 90s and 2000s, there was a good chance he had a hand in its creation. He wrote the melodiously wonderful That Thing You Do from the film of the same name, and penned tunes for both music and lyrics and Josie and the Pussycats. His master craftsmanship and hook divining abilities also suited him well as the music producer for Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. The CW musical comedy series featured a couple of original songs in every episode, and he helped compose more than 150 of them. Diagnosed with symptoms of COVID-19, Schlesinger was admitted to a hospital in Poughkeepsie, New York, where he was placed on a ventilator and sedated to help his body recover. His condition worsened, however, and on April 1st, he passed away. He was 52 years old.